5 hosts, 4 divisions, all battling it out for the Holy Grail of the American Hockey League, the Calder Cup. This is the Holy GrAHL Podcast. Here are your hosts, Zack Power, Andrew Rinaldi, Corey Swartz, and Deana Weinheimer.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 57 of Field Pass Hockey's AHL podcast, The Holy GrAHL. That's Holy GrAHL with an AHL. This is the episode for March 9th, and we're here to give you a recap of the last week in AHL hockey. And so we'll start things off with our introductory question for you guys. Just to reiterate, I'm Corey Swartz here. I don't think I've said that so far, but you guys, all three of you were at the Outdoor Classic this past weekend. I want to ask, have you guys thawed out yet? And have you guys had any good food while you were there in the 5-hour wait between puck drop?
Well, I'm Andrew Rinaldi here from the Chicago Wolves and Grand Rapids Griffins beat. If you want to call it food, we did stumble upon this little chicken shack place that offered some chicken fingers and fries that were both served at about 38 degrees Fahrenheit, and for $17.50 or whatever they cost, it was not to my liking.
And I'm Deana Weinheimer, managing editor, cover of the Cleveland Monsters. It was $18. And yeah, I'm convinced I got a touch of a stomach thing because of it. I'm kind of downing Pedialyte still as we speak here. It wasn't the best. I think my chicken was a little bit warmer than the fries, so at least there was that. But at least they had good snacks up in the media area. So they had, some cookies and the Scooby snack branded stuff. Thank goodness they ended up having coffee, because after a 5-hour delay, it ended up being like a 17+ hour day for the three of us. And then Hector, our photographer. But yeah, I thawed out, thankfully, because the media area was completely enclosed indoors. But yeah, food to eat. No, I was glad we were able to find a McDonald's on the way home.
I'm Zack Power. Mine definitely wasn't $17, and my credit card statement said otherwise, because boy, they did the top tier exchange rate for that one. That was beautiful. Canadian dollar, woot woot. But yeah, it was really great. I had about 4 packs of these cookies that they had. Fantastic. I take it out to the chefs of Cleveland Brown staff. You guys are amazing.
That's awesome. I'm glad you guys made it through. And we'll move right along then, and we'll go with some breaking news. And we have some housekeeping here to start the show, and I believe Deana will elaborate on that for us a little bit further.
Yeah, you might have guessed by the updated introduction to our show, but the Holy GrAHL is moving to a 4-person show. I mean, 4 divisions, 4 hosts, kind of makes sense. But moving forward, of course, Corey's going to be staying on our Atlantic beat. I will be moving to cover the American Hockey League North Division full-time here. Andrew's going to keep manning that Central, and Zack has got your back for the Pacific. Now, Jeremy is no longer with Field Pass Hockey. We will miss him, miss having Jeremy on the show, but with some recent staffing changes here at Field Pass Hockey, it's a move that, a corresponding move that we had to make. And Zach Martin, who filled in, of course, thank you so much, Zach, for doing that and for volunteering. And he still will be around occasionally on the Holy GrAHL podcast with some Checkers news. So don't worry. You can still catch all of his written stuff here at fieldpasshockey.com, and you'll be seeing his face occasionally popping in and out. And Zach wrote in our script in the brightest font choices possible. That Zach with the K says, don't worry, the @ plugs, as always, will remain.
Money in the bank.
Absolutely. And speaking of breaking news, we have a cross-conference trade to talk about that I think, Zach, you have a little bit more on for us then.
Yeah, this one came in this week. Bakersfield has acquired defenseman Xavier Bernard from the Belleville Senators in exchange for Graham McPhee. And that happened over this week, and both of those players are on the way to their respective cities as we speak.
Man, talk about a bit of a travel there to start off with, for sure. I mean, that's about as cross-country as you can get. Well, we'll move along from that then into our Elite Prospect of the Week. And many thanks, as always, to our partners over at Elite Prospects, the world's leading hockey resource for league, team, and player data. Check them out at eliteprospects.com. Each week, we do the AHL Elite Prospect of the Week here on the Holy GrAHL Podcast, whether it's on-ice play, some type of achievement, or something else that made them stand out. This is the top player for the last week in AHL hockey, and boy, do we have a standout for you, because this week we're highlighting Pyotr Kochetkov of the Chicago Wolves, who stopped 39 pucks. I'm sorry, 49 would be even more impressive, but 39 pucks en route to a 4-1 win over the Manitoba Moose. Moreover, he scored a goal of his own into an empty net for the AHL's second goalie goal of the year. And I'll still continue to wait for the Hershey Bears to break that white whale in their history. That's my beat, of course. It's never happened in 85 years, but we've had it twice across the league this season. His celebration was the thing that stole the spotlight, although it didn't sit well with Manitoba's players who saw fit to try and fight Kochetkov at the game's end. A couple of different fights with a little bit of revenge on Sunday in the follow-up game. Of course, it had to happen in game 1 of 2. As the Moose got a 5-3 win over the Wolves, and the tempers kind of flared at the end of that game as the two goaltenders met up for a little bit of fisticuffs, but the officials got to this one pretty early and settled it down before any mayhem could come of it. And Kochetkov's competitive fire once again gets him in the spotlight this week, not only for his performance in goal, but for, he made 57 saves in total, 1-1 record, 1 goal, and 22 penalty minutes. And of course, all data is courtesy of Elite Prospects. So we'll move on from that into the news recap of the week. And we're reaching the time of the year where NHL teams start signing entry-level contracts, which usually means their AHL affiliates will see some new players coming their way for the remainder of the season and to start their professional careers. And we have a pair of those to talk about here, as a couple of teams in my purview here have made some signings here. The Philadelphia Flyers signed Will Zmolek to a 1-year contract, which starts next season. But of course, as with both of these deals, they'll report to the AHL for the remainder of this season. And Anton Malmstrom has been signed by the St. Louis Blues. His contract is for 2 years and begins in September 2023. But fret not, Thunderbirds fans, he will report to Springfield for the remainder of this season, and hopefully will bolster them up a good bit into a nice playoff run.
And the same thing is ringing true in the North Division. And after a few weeks of speculation, it's finally real for Cleveland Monsters and Columbus Blue Jackets fans. On Tuesday, Columbus announcing that highly touted defensive prospect Corson Ceulemans has signed an entry-level contract beginning for the 2023-24 season. And of course, signing an AHL tryout contract with the Monsters for the remainder of this season. The Columbus first-round selection, 25th overall at the 2021 NHL Draft, just finished up his sophomore season at the University of Wisconsin. Now, at just 19 years old, he recorded 8 goals. Remember, defenseman, 8 goals, 15 assists for, of course, 23 points, 38 penalty minutes, 4 power play goals, and 92 shots on goal in only 33 contests for this past collegiate season. He finished 3rd on his team in assists, tied for points, and then, of course, still penalty minutes and power play goals tied. Led the club Blue Liners in goals, assists, points, penalty minutes, power play goals, and shot. Pretty much almost every category. Also finished the season with 2, 6, and 8 in the last 9 contests, including a 5-game point streak from February 18th to March 1st. in that span, going 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points. For a team that needs defense and also needs a bit of a scoring touch, perfect addition for the Cleveland Monsters.
Yeah, and some news out of the Pacific Division. It was kind of a busy one out there. Ivan Morozov has been suspended 1 game following a match penalty that was dished out on Sunday. Morozov missed Wednesday's game against Coachella Valley, the Henderson player there. The Holy GrAHL is also sending out best wishes to Mike Stothers and his family this week. The Anaheim Ducks announced this week that the former AHL bench boss has been diagnosed with stage 3 melanoma lymph node. And we all send our best wishes to him and his family, and we wish him the best and most speediest recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. And on a bit of a brighter note, we do have a milestone alert. Andrew Agozzino has scored his 500th career AHL point. The Sharks captain did so on Sunday night, scoring the first goal for the Barracuda in a 5-4 loss against the Coachella Valley Firebirds. So congratulations to Captain Agozzino, and hopefully many more points to come.
Can we talk a minute about, so as we're recording this, one of Andrew's beat teams, the Griffins, and of course my beat team, the Monsters, are facing off in Cleveland. And I'm going to present to you my nomination for the I totally meant to do that goal of the year. Okay, so just watch Trey Fix-Wolanski, who number 64, and then Alexander Nedeljkovic in net. I don't think he meant this to happen, but off the back, in the net, and then on his pockets. I didn't think this was a goal at first until I saw the overhead. What an impossible angle of this shot to kind of go straight up and roll down the back here. Yeah, I don't know, guys. What is this? Watch this puck. Right in the shoulder, kind of pops up. You think it's going to go away? Nope. Straight up, straight back down. Ouch.
I've seen that kind of unfortunate bounce so many times playing pickup hockey. You always feel sort of, feel bad for the goaltenders as he's done everything he can and done it right. And it just kind of lifts up, but it just, the angles are just all wrong and it rainbows in like that. You feel for the goaltender on that one, but Trey Fix-Wolanski's so good that, he's getting those bounces for him there. He's been so good all season. And, that's how a player's having a good year, is when even the puck is finding a way to find its way in the back of the net for him too.
I think that's the hockey gods kind of tossing him a bone after he beat Ned cleanly earlier in the period, and the puck just hit the post and went out the other way. So I guess karma kind of comes for us all, but if I could get one clip that could kind of encapsulate the entire Grand Rapids Griffins season, it's that one right there.
I feel bad for the goaltenders as well, because so often as a goaltender, you don't know where the puck is. All right, let's back up, and that's kind of the first instinct, is get back towards the post, because God knows where that puck is going to come from. And that's exactly what happened. It happened to Yaroslav Halak in Detroit. I remember watching that. And it also happened to Mike Smith in he was playing against Buffalo as well. And again, that first instinct is to kind of push back towards the net, and it doesn't always pay off.
Now, Mike Smith was the one where his jersey was kind of divoted in between his shorts and his back, and the puck kind of settled down in that pocket, and he carried it back into the net. That was that one, right?
Yeah. And again, it's looking for that puck. You don't know where it is. It gets tipped up in the air, or it's at a tough angle, and all of a sudden you don't know where the puck is. All right, let's just get to the back of the net, so that way it can get to either post, and I'm still blocking the net.
Yeah. I'm glad you read my mind there, because I'm thinking of that. I had that clip playing in my head, but I couldn't think who it was. I thought it was Mike Smith, but anyway, I just a little breakaway there, and sorry, Andrew, 2-0 Tyler Angle.
I mean,
nice clean little breakaway. I've been watching the Monsters all season. Yes. I would have expected
you haven't been watching enough Griffins hockey then.
Okay, fair.
Well,
All right.
speaking of hockey, let's get into the Outdoor Classic recap because so all three of you guys. Unfortunately, I didn't get to. The delay caused me not to be able to experience this one, at least remotely, with you guys as we originally intended it for. So I want you guys to spill the details on the experience of being in the arena for it. You said you were in an enclosed area, so I guess I don't have to ask if you guys froze out there like the 2 times I went to outdoor games. But just tell me about it. Like, what was the atmosphere like? Because, both at the time when it was delayed and then kind of coming back to it, since that's a very unusual kind of situation. Like, I guess we'll start there and we'll kind of move into, the conditions like the ice and, some more things like that then.
Well, it really was a wave of, I'm trying to think of the right way to put this because, of course, leading up to the game, people start coming in the stadium. There's all this nervous and excitement, anticipation, and, everyone's got their signs out. They're ready to go. It's a beautiful day. It's starting to warm up a little bit. The sun is shining. And in Ohio at that point, the sun does not shine. It's basically cloud cover from right after Halloween up until almost Easter. It never is sunny. So of course, the one day that it's sunny is that day. But I guess talking about excitement levels and stuff, there's definitely, that high palpable level of excitement. And then you felt this dip. Now, even though where we were, you couldn't really hear the crowd too well because there's a thick glass there and we're away from, even though we're technically close to the crowd there, you can't hear them very well. So, but you could just kind of see through the body emotions and even the little bit of noise that we did hear, you could just, after all the players left, and then all of a sudden you started seeing players coming out in their like hoodies and shorts, and they're throwing t-shirts in the stands. It was just confusion at that point. And then all the energy just drained out after they announced, due to ice conditions and the sunshine, we're going to be delayed for 5 hours. And then after that, I didn't really regain any of that energy back until like right after warm-ups the second time. Because at that point, they looked like, okay, we're actually proceeding with this. Everyone's staying out on the benches. It was a really quick, I think, 8 to 10 minute warm up. They didn't even go back into their locker rooms at that point. They stayed out and just went on with the show. So it was just real ebb and flow. And it's just too bad that they couldn't get it going for the first time and have the original crowd size there.
And, I would say about 10 minutes, 15 minutes after the announcement, we all got our way down to the lower bowl and onto the main concourse to kind of look around. And, every now and again, someone will say that you can cut the tensions with a knife. And you could cut it with a plastic knife in there. Like, really and truly, the fans that even were left at that point, they were upset. And they were visually upset for a lot of reasons, be it good or bad. And, there was a lot of people saying, well, what do I do with my tickets? I want a refund. I can't get back. And you also have to remember, too, the crowd in the afternoon was very much a family crowd, right? It was pitched as a family event. You can go take your kid to the outdoor game for a cheap and affordable price. And when that wasn't any longer an option because the game would have ended so late, that's when you started to see a lot of these fans upset. Now, I had the opportunity to go down into the lower bowl for every bit of about a half hour or so during the game. And it was pretty cool. It was a great experience. It was a little cold down there, but like if you wore a jacket, you were pretty well fine. And the atmosphere was good for what it was. Obviously, I felt like the fans were a little drained because, like us all, we kind of had a long day collectively, right? The energy that they had at 1 o'clock wasn't really the same energy, I think, that they might have had at 6. So I do think that they made the best out of it, the most out of it. But yeah, sometimes it's just the way it is. And who would have known that the sun would have been one of the biggest contributors?
Yeah, it was really strange. It was like the weather was too good. and I've never seen a situation where too much sunshine was a bad thing. So there's a first for everything. I really enjoyed, though, how the players kind of reacted to the situation and how throughout the entire time that it was delayed, basically, you saw one group of not so much from the Penguins until later on in the day, because they kind of went back to the hotel, but you saw a lot of monsters kind of milling around. They went up into the stands, and I don't know if they were chatting with friends or family or just random fans, anyone who was walking by. And then the good thing about having it there, in that football stadium, is that you have that. There's not really a whole lot of separation between the field and the stands, so you can go up and just have a casual little conversation. And when they were kind of starting to take the tarps off about 2 hours before game time or so, we went down onto the field and kind of got to get involved a little more in some of those conversations and seeing not a ton of fans, obviously, because this is 2 hours or so after the delay, maybe a little more. And, but those who did stay and those who were enjoying it, like, I think it reminded these guys, like, why they're out here, why they're doing this. And it was, at the end of the day, right, you're starting off early in the morning, you're tailgating, you're buzzing at 1 o'clock ready for a primetime matchup, and you don't really get it. So you're not going to have that same buzz, but I don't know. I enjoyed it being under the lights, and those fans who were there, they really came out for it, and it ended up being still an incredible experience.
Who's going to do the Yuna Luoto impression?
I guess I will.
I can't do it, so.
Well, so when we got out there, right when they took the tarp off, just kind of assessing how the ice was looking. Now, the idea was obviously, get the sun to go down, and as soon as you saw the shadows kind of starting to creep over the ice surface, that was when they kind of took the tarps off and let it settle and everything. At first, it was not looking very good. Granted, there's still a whole lot of work to do by the ice crew, but you just on first exposure with the tarp off, it was not looking very playable. A couple players came on, looked at it. I believe Pavel Shayan was one of the goalies who was kind of looking like saying, it doesn't look too bad. Yuna Luoto was one who was a little more honest with how it was looking. Literally poked his head up for a solid half a second and just had that laugh of disbelief, just turned around and just goes, nope. And I thought, based on his reaction, and what we were looking at exactly, I was not. I was expecting that there would have to be an entire cancellation of the event, and which would have been an absolute disaster for the Monsters in the league. And it was going to be heartbreaking, honestly. But full credit to the ice crew. They worked pretty much nonstop. Those Zambonis were getting running, and they had all kinds of instruments running along. I didn't even know what half of them did, but you know what? They got the ice to a level that was acceptable at this level of hockey, and they made what ended up being a fantastic game happen. So without their efforts, this would have been a disaster and a black eye for the league. But credit to them. They turned that into a playable surface. And like I said, a great game.
Yeah, I'm not sure how well this is coming through, but I have a picture that I took probably not even 90 seconds before Yona Luoto came out and had that uh, reaction to the ice. But you can just see the ponding. You can see where parts are frozen, parts, have ponded and refrozen. It was not good. I mean, even if you can't see the detail, you can kind of see the differences in where it's shiny, where it's not. But they turned that into a nice, beautiful, level playing surface that was acceptable to everybody.
Now you say acceptable though. My question is, how did it hold up over the course of the game? Because I mean, I'm obviously the sun's down by that point. They've probably done all they can with it. Was it you think when you think of like infamous kind of like outdoor games, I always think of like the 2011 outdoor game between Washington and Pittsburgh where it was raining. And anybody that's played hockey on a surface that's wet, whether it be the Zamboni that runs, knows that if you even try to, make a slap shot along the ice, it's going to go a couple inches and stop completely dead in its tracks. And, that was happening a lot in that game. Did anything like that really happen there? Was by and large the ice surface pretty good after all was said and done by the time the game was going?
I think it was pretty good, and they did spend a good couple of hours with that tarp over, which made a huge difference. And when Andrew says that they were going nonstop with the Zamboni, I would say they must have done at least 6 dry scrapes before they did a couple of wet ones. You could still see, I think you could still see the little divots, right? The ice wasn't entirely smooth. Like, it's to be expected, I guess, right? I think that it was at pretty well like an average or slightly below average playing surface for an outdoor game. The pucks moved pretty good, but I do think that it took some time for the players to warm up to it. But I do think that the puck moved well enough for the game.
And then here's another angle of just what that ice looked like ahead of time. This was down near the Zamboni entrance. So this would have been right behind, I think, the Monsters shoot twice goal, but you can kind of see it a little bit better here, just how terrible that ice looked. And of course, this was before, first the Zambonis went by multiple times doing literal dry scrapes just to try to even it out a little bit before they started flooding and scraping.
Wow, that's insane to consider they were able to get that into a playable surface by the time the game was set to resume. So, these ice crews are, so fantastic at what they do. It's, some of the real unsung heroes across the league, and particularly so in these outdoor games. But I'm glad you guys survived and had a great experience with it. It seemed like, just from what I saw, obviously I didn't get to watch it, but I got to track it a little bit. It also seemed like it was a pretty good game from what I understood. Maybe a little less for some Wilkes-Barre fans. I know a couple buddies of mine who may be listening, came away feeling, a little disappointed by their team, of course, but it seemed like it was still, some exciting hockey. You got some overtime, if I'm not mistaken.
Got some overtime. I was a little nervous earlier. We actually got a chance to interview, of all people, for the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. We got to interview Tux. If you don't know who Tux is their mascot. And we got to ask, I'm going to be having, if you check out the Field Pass Hockey TikTok, hopefully by the time this episode comes out on Thursday, I'll have that posted there. But we got to talk to him a little bit, and we asked him for his prediction of the game, and he told us 3-0, obviously Penguins. It looked like it was going to go that way for a decent chunk of at least the first half of the game. But yeah, it wasn't necessarily a disallowed goal, but it was kind of a not enough evidence to overturn a no goal because they couldn't see, where the puck was on the replay. But that really seemed to set the Monsters off, and they came back and ended up winning it in a little bit of contentious fashion. So if your Pens fans were, those friends weren't a little too happy, I can't say I don't blame them. I would have been unhappy with that result.
Well, hopefully you didn't tell Tux that you know who I am, because the only time I've run into Tux, I told him that Coco is cooler than he is. So don't know that he's going to be my best friend next time I see him necessarily. But that was my one experience last time I was up in Wilkes-Barre, and he bumped into me and pointed at me wearing my Hershey jersey. being up there for the game. I told him Coco's cooler than he is. So he probably hasn't forgiven me for that one yet, but that's okay. So I only speak the truth. So, Tux, if you're listening, I'm sorry, but it's true.
I didn't know Tux made noises. He has the cutest little squeak, squeak, squeak noise. And yeah, he's a lot of fun. I enjoy him. And all I can say is we got a chance to talk to Alex Nylander on Saturday, and our streak of good luck of people talking to us here at the Holy Grail and having good thing happen continues, because today, Tuesday, he got called up to the NHL. So Alex, if you're listening, you're welcome.
That's fantastic. It's bound to happen too. I've been saying it all season. I couldn't believe they haven't given him a better look there, but that's great. I'm glad to hear it. And it seems like, it was another great success in having outdoor hockey come back for the AHL. So it's very happy to see that. Well, we'll move into Deana's favorite segment. Now the swipe left and swipe right segment, where we present a hot take of the week. And, much like any of your favorite dating apps, if you're unfortunate enough to still have to use those, I'm sorry. You either swipe right to agree with it or swipe left to disagree. And if you like it enough, you could super swipe it too. So we'll get started here. We'll let Andrew give us his first take here.
Yeah, for sure. And this is going to be one coming off of this weekend's festivities. Outdoor games are always kind of a wild card because you plan these so far in advance. You don't really know what weather you're getting until really the day of. I mean, they were calling for clouds and wind all up until the sun came out on Saturday. So I think that all outdoor games should be night games. There's so many variables that you can't really control. You can control the ones you can by waiting for the sun to go down and then having your game then. So plus, I think it just looks so much better under the lights. I think the atmosphere is better. I mean, obviously it's in this league, you got to think of the family-friendly atmosphere and having your kids in there. And I get it. You can't have your little ones running around until 10:30 at night. But I think it's such a better environment for a hockey game as a whole. And I think that if you're going outside, you got to do it under the lights.
If I still had a super swipe, you'd get it. But yeah, totally agree. Yes. I may have a super swipe. I don't know. I'll have to double check on that, but you at least get a right swipe. And I think a lot of the people that had the complaints about their kids for this game, it was only because they had intended on a 1:00. So the family's whole schedule gets uprooted to plan for 1:00, because I'm even on my other screen here, have tonight's Cleveland Grand Rapids game up, and they're showing so many younger kids in the stands, but they planned for this on a Tuesday night. If they can plan for a 7:00 or a 6:30 or whatever on a Saturday, I think you still would see a lot of families out there. But I get some of the logistical reasons why they did a 1:00. The NBA's Cleveland Cavaliers were also playing at home that night, so they wanted to kind of avoid the two events going up against each other, because honestly, AHL hockey versus NBA, usually that NBA team's going to win out in terms of people spending money. So I get why they did that, but yeah, right swipe. Just like Andrew said, control the things you can control. You can't control the weather, but you can control you can control the schedule to coincide with the most optimal conditions.
I'm going to swipe left on this. And I kind of mentioned it on the podcast a little bit, because I as much as I like the aesthetic a lot better under the lights, I will be the first to admit that. But for the AHL, I just don't see the fit. because I think that as a fan of sports in general, you can make a great case for going down to Cleveland. I know that they had some ticket specials going at some point where if you buy a ticket to the outdoor game, you actually get a ticket to the NBA game as well. And just imagine all those outside people who plan on even thinking about coming to the game and then saying, wow, I can get an NBA ticket and an AHL ticket as well when I kind of get this booking going. And I do think as well as an AHL league, we're such a family-friendly league, and we try to push for that, bring your families here for an affordable price for get to see some good hockey. And I think that even though you can kind of reschedule, I do think that you will get a lot more fans if you do it at that 1:00. And, for me, I just love the aesthetic of even I think about 2008 with the snow falling down, and you could see it a lot nicer in a way because it was so bright out and whatever. And even thinking about TV air times, there's not a whole lot of hockey going on at 1:00 in the day. They can get volley in there. So that's kind of my thought on it, and I'll give it a swipe left respectively.
Does the NBA play in the afternoon, or are they strictly an evening-only league? I know next to nothing about basketball, so that's why I'm asking.
I think they kind of play wherever or whenever, and it depends on the scheduling. I mean, I don't think that they kind of quite plan themselves around other sports like the NHL does. Like during football season, you'll never see the NHL schedule an afternoon game. That's just evening. I don't even think they do that in Canada. But I can't tell you. I haven't seen an NBA game in 8 years.
That's longer than me because it's been never. Literally never.
I just threw a number out, man. I don't actually remember paying attention to the Pistons since Ben Wallace was on the team, and that's been a long time.
Fair.
Well, for me, I have Zach brought up a really great point with this one because I do remember years ago when the Phantoms were the Philadelphia Phantoms, not the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. They actually used to do a special where it was kind of in reverse of what he was talking about there, where if you bought a Flyers ticket, you could go down to the Phantoms game later on that night after the game on your same ticket. And, to me, I was like, man, that's a great way to get people in the building for that sort of thing. And of course, it's a similar situation to Cleveland where they have basketball and hockey, in the same building in this case. So I'm still going to swipe right on this though, because I do kind of like the idea that the AHL takes center stage in a lot of ways. That's coming from Hershey where, AHL hockey is the big draw type of thing. They marketed that event, the last two in Hershey, around it being in the stadium, around it being a big deal. And it was a big deal type of thing, even though it was obviously a much smaller crowd in the Hershey Park Stadium compared to some of the other things there. So I'm a little conflicted on it, but I'm going to swipe right just because I believe in hockey supremacy over basketball 150%. So I'm going to give it a swipe right for that one only, but I do see some compelling arguments there. If you can combine it with that one to, grow awareness of it in other markets where maybe it's not quite like that. And, a lot of these AHL to NHL teams do the same thing. I do think that's kind of genius and should be a component of it. And, that's my 2 cents on it. And hockey supremacy. That's right. I have always said that for many years. People always look at me over here like I have, 2 heads, but I believe in hockey supremacy. So
we have a new banner now. I like that. Just hockey supremacy, something else to go along with our, justice for pots, or we are or are not doing this.
There's one thing I could coin, I'll gladly take that. That's for sure. So my take is that, even though I didn't get to follow along with you guys, while I was at the Bears games over the course of this past week, one of my hobbies during intermissions or during a low point is I always tune in to see what their ECHL affiliate in South Carolina is doing. And, you know, if you're a South Carolina Stingrays fan over there, you're probably, you know, smiling and fist pumping because the Stingrays had a great last 4 games. They tuned up their opponents, and I feel sorry, it was mostly the Atlanta Gladiators that got tuned up here, to the tune of 25 goals in their last 4 games, including a 10-1 thumping. I believe that would have been on March 3rd, which would have been on Saturday, I believe. But one of the guys I really love watching on the Stingrays is a gentleman by the name of Bear Hughes, who is a, you know, he's the Stingrays' leading scorer here with, you know, just, you know, the kid's been lighting it up. It's his rookie season. He's almost matching his numbers from his last season in juniors there in the WHL. And I keep saying to myself, the Bears would not have gotten shut out on Teddy Bear Toss night if Bear Hughes had been in the lineup. Bear Hughes scoring a Teddy Bear Toss goal for the Hershey Bears. The script writes itself. And so now I'm kind of on the campaign of saying, bring this kid up to the NHL. How perfect would that be? Or at least sign him for next year and, you know, get him in the fold and starting next year as a reward for playing so well this year. He's a Caps prospect on an AHL deal. He was drafted by the Capitals. You know, this kid's stock is rising. I think that that's like got to be one of the best naming alliterations. His first name's actually Cassius, but as my understanding goes and as I've read about it, he's never gone by that name in his life, to the point where a story I read went where he was an elementary school student. They called him to the office and they called him that, and he didn't go down to the office because he didn't respond to that name at all. So his actual name now is Bear. Get this kid in Hershey. I will buy a Bear Hughes jersey. I'm going to say that right here for the record. I said it on Twitter earlier this week, but I will buy a Bear Hughes jersey just to die on this hill that he needs to be a Hershey Bear.
Some guys are just named for destiny, and I'm all about it, especially when it really lines up. The Red Wings have a prospect by the name of Red Savage. Kind of in the same vein. I doubt he'll be a player of any kind, but I want it to happen just because it's poetry, you know, it rhymes. So I'm gonna right swipe on that. I would 100% do a I would support you in the purchase of a Bear Hughes Hershey Bear Hughes jersey.
Sounds like some Mark Bergevin type memes right there. Simple swipe right.
I know it's not the most controversial hot take I've ever had, but it was one of those things where I'm like, I can't not talk about this. He had a bunch of points in, you know, he didn't light it up. There's a couple of guys that had really big offensive weekends for the Stingrays over the course of this weekend. And, you know, this 25 goal outing in 4 games that the Stingrays had, but he's one of those players who just kind of chips away at it. You know, he's on the power play. It seems like, you know, he's just kind of all over the ice, you know, had at least 1 goal that I know of, and, you know, was at least a point per game player over this stretch. And of course, you know, who wasn't over the course of this past weekend. It was easier to count the players that didn't have goals on the stat sheet, but it's just one of those ones where it's like, you just can't help but like him. And I'm just shocked that he hasn't, you know, obviously the Bears have been pretty well stocked with forwards, but particularly in December where they were pretty beat up by injuries and recalls and all that kind of stuff, I kind of kept saying to myself, like, why wouldn't you be rushing to get this kid in a Bears jersey? And at least, you know, you at least be able to say that for a game or two, you know, at this point, and then get him up. You know, I'm hoping they get him up full time next season if things align. But, you know, I'm kind of going to be waiting with bated breath to see if he gets another AHL contract for next season.
All I can say with this one is I have learned when it comes to anything Hershey related just to listen to you. So I'll just simply say swipe right because you are usually square on with these. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to my take. And so Joel Hofer, Springfield Thunderbirds goaltender, kind of legend in my mind. There is hardly a better week possible for a goalie than the one that he just had. I know Andrew's going to fight me on this. I know I'm going to instantly get a swipe left from him, but I'm prepared for that. It's okay. So all I can say is at least Joel Hofer didn't get removed from a game or get into a fight that I know of this week. But I mean, come on, take a look at this. bobblehead, iconic bobblehead. You know, he's celebrating that goalie goal. Amazing. And then Springfield Thunderbirds having a little bit of fun on Twitter about it. Take a look at that stat line. It just simply reads Joel 30, Joel Hofer, goalie is the bobblehead. Nice. But yeah, on top of it being a bobblehead night, shutout, stopped 57 of 58 in 2 games last week for a .49 goals against average and a .983 save percentage. Shutout streak of 145 minutes and 50 seconds. And this past week was his 12th start this season, allowing no more than 1 goal. Other than Pyotr Kochetkov, I don't think you can get a better week as a goalie. That is my take.
I would right swipe on it just for the celebrating bobblehead, but I'm afraid Jimmy Oldney would pop up out of the shadows and drag me down to the ice for not doing anything. But no, you're gonna get a right swipe anyway. I mean, it's 1 goal in 2 games. I mean, the only way he could be better is if he had 2 shutouts. So yeah, I'm still gonna give it to you. Just because Kochetkov had a better time doesn't mean that Hofer didn't play exceptionally over this weekend.
I appreciate you.
I try.
If you were going to bring this one up, I probably would have in some form, just because, like, I love Joel Hofer. So, I mean, it's obviously an easy swipe right for me. I think if he's not in the NHL next season somewhere, some way, somehow, I'll be shocked. He's, you know, it was a massive measuring sticks season for him. You know, some people, you know, weren't sure if he was legit or not, I think. You know, despite the goalie goal in the playoffs last season, you know, it was still a prove me kind of year because his numbers were kind of average last season, if I remember right. You know, it was definitely like, you know, a massive kudos to him with Charlie Lindgren leaving the crease to be able to say, like, hey, like, you're going to be the guy this year. Because, you know, Vadim Sharenko has been very good in his own right, but, you know, he's still a rookie. He's still, you know, learning the rails for the game, so to speak, and, you know, getting used to things. And Joel Hofer has been, you know, probably the best player for the Thunderbirds all season. He's just consistently given them a chance to win, and I love him. I think he's going to be in the NHL sooner rather than later, so it's an easy swipe right. And that bobblehead, I mean, you can't beat that pose. It's unique. It's iconic. You know, I'd be lining up early to snag one of those, and unlike the bobbleheads in Hershey, the player in the bobblehead was actually there to be there for bobblehead night. So, you know, you just can't beat it. That's perfect.
You know who would beat it? Jimmy Oldney.
Oh no. He's just gonna like be creepy around the corner, and then all of a sudden you're a little happy bobblehead sitting there, and like a cat, he just comes in and swipes it off the table. Bye-bye, bobblehead.
Is it a right swipe though?
Either way, the bobblehead's ending up on the floor. I don't think it matters.
Well, I'll say I can't speak for its best performance of the AHL all time, but I can definitely say that it was a pretty impressive weekend. I'll go as far as to say that this was the best performance from a goaltender all year, at least to date. So I'll give him that. You know, going against Hartford and getting a shutout isn't so much of an accomplishment per se, but he did play pretty good against Charlotte as well. So yeah, I'll give him that, and I will swipe right. So for me this week, it's been a week in the AHL, and I think one of the things that has gone unnoticed is, you know, the amount of hate that the AHL has been getting over the celebrations, right? Not only did we have that the hate towards the goalie goal and the fight that ensued after, the same thing happened in Toronto with Garrett Wilson shoving the Marley down into the net. And I think my swipe is this week that the AHL should be looking into these. I've seen a lot worse suspensions going out this year over some pretty, I want to say, silly stuff. right? And I've talked about it to a magnesium before. And you know what? I think that the AHL should be looking into these, and they should be dishing out suspensions. We're not Dale Hunter here. We don't need to be going and dissing everybody who has a celebration for a goal.
Yeah, I've been one who definitely is a supporter of players kind of flashing their personalities out a little bit, in case you kind of haven't really noticed. They didn't officially say anything about Oligny, but he wasn't in the lineup for Sunday's game. I don't know if it was it's going to be one of those things where they would announce it by now. So maybe it was just kind of like a under the table kind of like, hey, why don't you sit this guy out for Sunday? We don't need him going back out and antagonizing this kid again. But yeah, swipe right. I want more players to be comfortable with. Yes, don't ride the stick down center ice like Tiger Williams, but there's a middle ground. You can have fun. It's okay to have fun. And if you don't want to see the other kid celebrating, scoring on you, maybe don't let them score. Maybe Manitoba, if you have a 6-on-4, you don't dump the puck into the corner with no forecheck. Just a suggestion.
I'm going to be more controversial and swipe left on this one. And it's not because I'm part of the no fun squad, but because, it's one of those things where it's somewhat of a respect factor, maybe a little bit too. And like, I may be just bitter because I'm coming off of playing too many years of like the NHL video games where like particularly recently, I don't know if you guys game at all or played those, but like they started adding some like ridiculous things. And, I get Andrew's point of saying if you don't want him to do it to you, don't let him score type of thing. There's sometimes where, you don't need to have some guy score on like a backdoor tap in and do like, the dolphin dive into swimming animation or the handstand that they put in the NHL games and stuff like that. Like that makes you like annoyed because it's like, is this guy for real right now? Like, this guy just did a 30-second celebration into the boards and the whole team's just you feel insulted in addition to, all that. So like, I'm all for the kind of celebrations like the Yager salute. That's one of those ones where it's simple, but it if you're another team, it's kind of like you're like, oh man, I can't believe we let that guy score. Like with the Bears, for instance, like their players have been doing a celebration this year where they flash a little, their hands up and they do a little bear roar type of thing. And it's quick, it's effective, it's a celebration. It's one of those ones where I'm like, put that in NHL, get a bear roar going for us or something like that. It's still the flashes of personality, but it doesn't need to be like, if I was a Manitoba Moose player, I would be a little bit annoyed at, Pyotr Kochetkov. Would I have gone after him? Probably not, because it's, it's one of those things where it annoys you and you kind of let it go type of thing, whatever, again, he did a pretty impressive play to score, let him have his moment type of thing. So, maybe if the moment's right, that's okay, but I'm not keen on it being an everyday occurrence where somebody's doing the Ovechkin, hot stick thing type of thing. So, I think it's just in moderation. I think it's fine.
I can swipe right on the moderation because I think but it's hard to really put a limit on, okay, at this point, it's an acceptable celebration. And at this point, not. It's kind of one of those things where you have to consider everything going around. And as long as it's nothing egregious, like in the celebration, you are actively taunting somebody or, as part of your celebration, you're slamming this puck into an empty net or I don't know. There's so many variables that at this point, I even forget like really what the original take is, but whatever swipe it's going to be to allow a little bit of leeway, but also, as if it's in distaste, then we can enforce on that.
Yeah, I think for me, it just kind of like just one more little addendum to this one is that like, again, personality is great. We love personality, but much like the NHL celebrations, it influences the next generation of kids that are watching these guys type of thing to want to do and be as these guys are. And, we don't, Andrew just mentioned in our, little chat here off the side here is that we don't need more kids, wanting to throw their glove and shoot it down in the air, not that there's anything overly wrong with that one by comparison to something else. We don't need kids like, hucking their sticks into the stands or something like that, trying to one up somebody that, did it in the NHL. And everyone's like, personality. So that's just kind of where I am with it at this point.
Well, I think there's a difference between a goalie goal and like a backdoor tap in that we see in Chell a million times a week. So it's once in a lifetime kind of deal. Pyotr's allowed to celebrate a little bit. But right, if it's a 3-0 game and you want to go and I'm trying to think of some other kind of iconic thing, but like, you want to go over the top. I do agree on the respect factor. I know there are a handful of Wolves fans that aren't too keen on Yaro Askarov's celebrations, but I'm still gonna say if you don't want to see him bench pressing the net or putting it down for a shutout, then score.
And also, don't be surprised. Sorry, Zach, go ahead.
And that's my thing is I'm all for the celebrations. And like, I think that there's an extent and a degree to everything. But when players start to get attacked on the ice because they were celebrating, and I know for the Marlies, it was just a case where he went like this or something in front of the net, and then you cross-check the guy into your own goalie, that's when I start to take exception to the rule.
Absolutely. And the kind of caveat to it is if you're going to celebrate big, like you probably need to be ready to watch your back too. Cause that, if it's 6-0 and you're, doing some kind of elaborate celebration on your third or fourth goal of the night or something like that, you're probably going to get lit up. Like it's just the way it goes sometimes. But anyhow, that's my 2 cents for it at this point, I guess. But we'll move right along here into our Game of the Week segment where we're going to give you some games to watch across our various purviews here around the league. And I guess I will just continue to keep rolling here since the Atlantic Division starts with an A, and we'll start there. So for me, I have a big feature piece coming out on Field Pass Hockey on this, later on this week here, about the Hershey Bears taking on the Providence Bruins, top 2 teams of the Atlantic. One team's going to walk away with the lead. Hershey has it by 1 point right now, but it's a very curious matchup in my book because both teams are missing some key players. Providence, it's more on the front end. Players like Vinny Lettieri are still sitting out after, they've been sitting out since the end of January, as well as Luke Toporowski, 2 guys that are just keen offensive providers. Well, for Hershey, it's more on the back end. Dylan McElrath, Vincent Iorio, Gabriel Carlson were all missing from the matchup on Saturday. It's a tough thing, but both teams had to battle through it. It was a 1-0 game. All 3 games so far between the 2 teams have been 1-goal games. One team that's licking their chops kind of ahead of time here are the Charlotte Checkers. They're just hoping for regulation losses, because if they can win even 2 of the 3 games that they have against Bridgeport, suddenly that gap that they have between second place at the very least is that much smaller, I think, in the two teams. And, that all-important bye in the first round is on the line there. So with 2 head-to-heads between 2 of the other teams left this season, I just see it being a big set of games for one of these 2 Atlantic teams to kind of flex their muscle and kind of figure out who's the top dog here a little bit. And there's nothing like some contempt being bred with familiarity here. I see this becoming a hot rivalry that, could be maybe, a Atlantic Division final down the line potentially. I hesitate to ever make bold predictions quite like this, especially when it involves my team. But, it's one of those things. It would make for a great playoff series at the very least.
And in the North Division, I'm actually looking at a back-to-back at home for the Syracuse Crunch against 2 different teams. All 3 of these teams, though, in the North Division, and all of them are in that 3, 4, 5 spot. That's a pretty tightly contested race from the 3rd place Syracuse Crunch sitting in right now on Tuesday night at 61 points, and the 5th place Laval Rocket, who's only 5 points behind at 56. So On Friday night, they face that Laval Rocket, who are trying to outpace the Cleveland Monsters, who, if you listened on Saturday, and of course a little bit here, who are stocking up with some really high-powered pieces here, except Josh Dunn and Carson Meyer are now injured. So, anyway, they're also trying to outpace that Belleville Senators squad for that last playoff spot. So that's on Friday. On Saturday, guess who's coming into town? The Rochester Americans in 4th place. So this is going to be huge. If, let's say, Syracuse loses both of these, that means Rochester, Laval's going to just tighten, that necktie just a little bit more. But if they manage to win, that's just going to give them a nice, comfortable seat right there in that 3rd place. And then, they're only 1 point back from the Utica Comets. We might have a whole new looking North just after those 2 games.
And as we look into the Central, I'm going to go with Saturday and Sunday series with Manitoba going into Iowa to play on the Wild. Manitoba's been on an absolute roll lately. They've been really keeping the heat on Texas and Milwaukee up there at the top of the division. And on the other side, Iowa's feeling good about themselves after sweeping the Griffins and kind of putting a bit of a cushion between them and the 2 teams chasing them for that last playoff spot. But their work isn't really done yet. I want to see if this team's actually out of the cold streak that they were on, or if this was just the case of them going up against the Grand Rapids team that's, putting it mildly, struggling in big opportune moments this season. So kind of a big character series for both of these squads, honestly.
Yeah, and for me in the Pacific Division, it's got to be this matchup between Texas and Coachella Valley. They say everything is bigger in Texas, including the team in the Lone Star State, who's got a Texas-sized record of 30, 14, and 10. And they've been playing with a fire team, and they're going to be going up against someone who's just that. The Firebirds are soaring at the top of the Pacific Division just about, and they're putting their Texas-sized record on the line here. These guys win at 75%. And that's no joke. And it's hard to come across a record that good this late in the year, that win percentage. You want 3rd round playoff hockey, the Western Conference Final. This is it. I mean, there's nothing more to say besides these 2 teams are powerhouses, and it's going to be an interesting matchup for sure.
Well, excellent. And we'll have one more game for you to keep an eye on with our AHL free game of the week. So for the AHL TV, there's 1 free game a week that you can catch at no additional cost, as long as you make a free account on ahltv.com. You don't even need to have a subscription to see this one. But the San Jose Barracuda are taking on the Bakersfield Condors at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific. Both teams are looking for points and to solidify themselves in the Pacific Division.
Talk about a barn burner. Oh my gosh. That was a choice.
I don't know. Those bottom playoff spots are up for grabs, and I don't think that there's any of those bottom teams in the Pacific Division are completely out of it. So, it does have some potential, I guess. Maybe if you look the right way. If you close one eye and squint the other all the way till it's closed, it should be great. We also have some live action on the Field Pass Hockey app, and we're braving the seas of the Atlantic this week when the Checkers race to the Islanders on Friday. That's a 7 p.m. start time Eastern, even, folks. Be there, be square. And if you missed that one, we'll do it all again on Saturday, probably with a different result from Friday. Who knows? So adjust your pocket watches today and download the app on the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store.
And I am going to throw one in here. We are going to take a quick look at our Wheel of Fate teams. It's been a little bit. So, guys, last time we did this, we made some massive moves. I'm just curious, who do you think is up at the top here?
That guy.
It ain't me. That's all I know.
I was trying to point to Zach. I'm sorry.
And Zach is in first place with 1,125.25 points. Andrew, I wish you would have gotten just a half point because this is bothering me, but Andrew has 1,110.5. Why couldn't you just gotten another half point so I could have just had all ones there? Come on. I'm in third with 1,049.25, and Corey 1,016.5. And again, that's just after some massive amount of moves where we had some rerolls on rerolls. And if I could just digress in saying, yo, Avs, can you please stop calling up Jonas Johansson? I was told by my co-host here that he would not have been the one that, would be picked for call-ups. It would have been Ananen, but I guess we all were wrong. But anyways, guys, is anybody feeling a reroll here, or are we just going to wait this out another few weeks to see where we stand here as we get closer to the end of the season?
Yeah, I'm going to kind of hold off on Alex Nylander to see if Pittsburgh just kind of wants to give him a cup of coffee and then send him back down, or if this is more a long-term thing for him.
Being in fourth place, I feel like I should, but I'm not going to just yet. I feel like my stock would be drastically different if Vinny Lettieri doesn't miss a month with injury. And I actually just learned that he was injured and not recalled or ill or something like that just recently. So I'm going to kick the can down the road here a little bit, because if he comes back, I feel like that's a game changer for me. I'm not that far out of the race here, thankfully. But I really like my picks, so I don't know how I can, re-roll on any of these guys.
And I'm personally not going to re-roll, just because, number one, I'm not sure how many I have left. So I don't want to get myself in trouble and then come to find out that, I don't know, I feel like I'm right at 4 or 5, so I might be done with my re-rolls in terms of, this guy just is not producing the way I wanted him to. But yeah, I don't want to get penalized for that. So I'm going to hold off. And I have a feeling Zach does not want to touch his roster at all.
No, but I will say this. If you do re-roll, the Wheel of Fate Police and Zach Martin is now disbanded. So I can't make a good case to Zach to get your picks redone again. So
that was a point of contention in our podcast group chat for a few weeks. Like anytime
you. We were all okay with it.
Well, because I'm one of the few people that did not have a Coachella. Well, I guess at the time, whenever Jeremy still had a team, I wanted a Coachella Valley person, and I had the opportunity to have it, and it got vetoed by Zach Martin. Come on. But eventually, the hockey gods said, you know what? They'll be nice. She has suffered enough. So, all right. We are just going to kick that can down the road, and we will see in the next episode or two how those teams are shaping up.
Absolutely. And to close things out here, we'll go with our bonus round. And Deana, I think you're going to have some outdoor classic trivia for us.
I am. And first of all, so I have one fun question, and then the other ones are a little bit more serious. Okay, so the fun question, and I've been trying this whole darn episode to find a picture of this, and I can't find any, and I'm a little upset about it, but it's okay. He is an underappreciated mascot, but I don't know if Corey's ever heard of him. I've talked about him on the podcast before, but Zach and Andrew got to witness this in person, the magnificence that is the inflatable monsters mascot. Can anybody tell me what his name is? The guy that looked like the egg, the walking egg with a beak?
Zach's got his hand up.
I'm going to say Swoley.
Swoley, is it?
Yeah.
Take on Sully, Swoley. All right. Zach gets a point here. I'm going to take notes because I will not remember this by the time we are done. So, all right. Now we're going to move into a little bit more serious questions, trying to see how well did you guys pay attention to the score sheet in this game. So the next two questions are going to involve penalties. All right. So at 31 seconds of overtime, that is when Marcus Bjork scored that game-winning goal. There were three penalties that were issued. Can anyone tell me who got a 10-minute penalty and what it was for?
Dustin Tokarski for abusive official.
Did we ever find out what that was even about?
Probably said something unappealing about the referee's wife.
Oh, no. That got oddly specific. Okay. This next one also going to be score sheet penalty related, but one player had 17, 1 second. 19 minutes, if my quick math is correct, worth of penalties. 17 of those came in the first. This is a name that I think Corey knows quite well, but does anyone know who that player is for Wilkes-Barre Scranton?
I know quite well. Wouldn't be Valtteri Puustinen, was it?
No.
Doggone it. Jamie Devane, possibly? Seems like the kind of guy to get 19 minutes of penalties in one game.
No, this person actually, whenever I found out it was this person taking all these penalties, I was a little perplexed. I'll just put it that way. I've heard you talk about him before. I'll just put it that way.
Good question then. Philip Hollander by chance? He's kind of scrappy. A little bit.
Should I give another hint?
Another hint would be appreciated,
Okay.
I think. I'll guess the whole roster if you want me to, though.
He is from Quebec.
Oh,
Quebec.
Oh, it's
he's from Blainville, Quebec. There's two guys from Blainville, Quebec, and oh my god,
I think I know his last name, but I don't remember his first name. I definitely
Xavier
don't
Ouellette?
pronounce it.
No, Xavier is actually, I found out, injured and has been out for a while.
I was supposed to say, I felt like I hadn't heard his name for a while, so it seemed like a...
Legare, I think is his name.
Nathan Legare.
Oh, man. I was trying to think, I'm like, who's the other guy with the, with that
Legare.
sounding last name?
Yeah.
Yep. So that is Andrew with 2 points. And then I'm just going to kind of end this one on a fun note as well. I guess maybe not fun note, but this is kind of like a trivia thing. So with the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, they caught themselves in a little bit of a bind in terms of finding something to do, in terms of finding a meal. So can anyone tell me who stepped up to provide a meal for the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins and why that was such a big deal?
7-Eleven, because it was close by. They were able to provide a subjudice board.
I don't know if it was 7-Eleven, but yes, a cold sandwich spread was provided. So I guess I can give you that, but does anyone remember who put that together?
It was the team chef.
Who was there as a fan, not even there working, but that was kind of the, I guess, feel-good thing that he came in clutch, got all that going. So I'll kind of give a point to Zach, point to Andrew. That leaves Andrew with 3 points, Zach with 2. Sorry, Corey. I tried to kind of add you in there a little bit. So,
I wasn't there, so I appreciate you trying to throw me a question with the Penguins there, even though I guessed around it pretty much. So that's all good.
You're going all around it. I'm like, you're right there, but you're not. Come on.
I don't know why Legare didn't come into mind there, frankly, honestly, but that's okay.
Yep.
I'll get it next time.
All right. So, Andrew, you get the bonus round next week. Congratulations.
Thank you. I feel like I've had a number of these this year. Not trying to flex or anything.
Who's had the most? That's a pretty good trivia question for the end of season.
Who's going to be the person to go back and figure that out?
We'll find out one of these episodes.
We need to hire a podcast historian. Email me, Deana.Weinheimer at fieldpasshockey.com if you're interested. And
we need a loyal listener to come through for us on this one.
I'm actually kind of not joking on that. If you're truly interested, please email me.
Well, I think that's going to do it for the Holy Grail this week. If you'd like to see or hear more of us, please subscribe to us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Also follow us on Twitter at the Holy Grail. That's GRAHL. You can also check out all of Field Pass Hockey's other podcasts, Matthew Harding and Jason Mowles, as they break down the ECHL's Wichita Thunder and chat with some of the team's legendary players. The Rolling Thunder podcast airs bi-weekly on Field Pass Hockey. You also have Syracuse Speaks with Alexandra Ackerman. It is a Syracuse Crunch-centric podcast that focuses on maintaining a balanced perspective in the ever-shifting world of minor league hockey. And on behalf of all of us here at the Holy Grail, we hope you have an amazing week, and we will see you next Thursday.
This has been the Holy GrAHL Podcast. Have a question or a topic suggestion? Hit us up on Twitter or drop us an email. For the latest news across the American Hockey League and the rest of minor league hockey, download the Field Pass Hockey app, now available in the Apple and Android app stores.